Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the man who twice escaped from Mexican prisons,
How
will
the
now
fuck
spend
you
the rest
escape
of
from
his
prison
life behind
twice, bro?
bars.
Outside high security as she, the mother of their twin daughters, left looking down.
After conviction, Chapo was sent here for life. The airtight...
Bro, how do you escape prison twice, bro? How does that make sense, bro?
July 19th, 2019.
Twice, bro.
El Chapo entered his 75-square-foot cell in Florence.
That's what he looked like. Ain't no, that can't be the actual footage of El Chapo, bro. So all them movies, all them stories, this looks nothing like him, bro. He looks like an old granddad, bro. What the fuck? Nah, man.
Colorado,
Why the hell
bringing
does
a
he look
halt
like
to
that,
his
bro?
reign as the most wanted Mexican
I
drug
thought he would
lord
have
in
like
America.
like bare
This
hair
moment
and that,
not only
like
marked the
mustache.
end of the road for El Chapo, but also
Shit.
the beginning of his life in this miniature version of hell.
Bro, skip
Inception.
twice.
He said this was the most inhumane conditions I've ever experienced.
Lo atiendan y que pues apliquen los derechos humanos.
Who's that? Is that his girl?
Estamos pidiendo algo otra cosa.
I suffer from headaches every day. I haven't seen the sun
Ain't no way he
breathe
backed her
fresh
like
air
that,
since
bro.
I set foot in this country. I'm tortured for 24 hours every day. That was part of a letter written by El Chapo to a judge, recounting his harrowing experiences in the United States' toughest prison. It's evident he's not having the time of his life over there, but I assure you the real intrigue lies in the secretive
See, the fucking
administrative
man, fam.
measures
Let's do an
he's
actual movie,
compelled
bro.
to
That's
follow,
nothing like him,
those
bro.
the media conveniently avoid talking about. But before we get into details of these measures and El Chapo's doomed fate to die behind bars, I need you to first understand why he's being subjected to torture in a foreign land. The name Joaquin El Chapo Guzman hardly needs any introduction. Back in the 90s, El Chapo was one of the greatest drug lords of all time, after Pablo Escobar, of course. These two infamous drug lords dominated the narcotics trade in different eras.
So they worked
Escobar
together.
was a more charismatic
Technically,
kingpin who didn't shy
basically.
away from the media, but El Chapo was a bit more cunning, operating in the shadows. In Mexico, his cartel empire raked in $3 billion annually. He co-founded the infamous Guadalajara cartel. However, after the death of DEA agent
Bro,
Enrique
three fucking billion. How do you get caught? If I had 3 billion, I'll change my face. No one will know who I am. I will disappear off this earth. I'll even go see my man Elon Musk and that. Are you crazy? 3 billion and you got caught. What a dick. Give me 3 billion. No one knows who I
Committed
am.
to Salazar by Mexican sicarios. El Chapo exploited the chaos
Drugs
to
make
ascend
that much
in
money,
rank
bro.
within the cartel. That prompted Felix Gallardo, during a summit of all top drug lords in Mexico at that time, to appoint El Chapo and Ismael El Mayo Zambada as the leaders of the Sinaloa cartel. However, down the line, he orchestrated two of the most mind-blowing prison escapes of the 21st century.
To escape means overcoming layer after layer
The fuck is
of
Finny doing that, fam?
impenetrable walls and an
That Morgan
army of
Freeman, bro.
guards
What's he
that
doing?
outnumber the inmates almost 2 to 1.
The first escape is a scene out of a fictional movie, but when it comes to this man, anything's possible. January 19th, 2001, El Chapo escaped one of the most secure prisons in Mexico. The crazy part is, he accomplished that with the help of prison guards and workers. One of the guards was a guy named Francisco El Chito Gamberos Rivera, and with the help of his wife, Emma Coronel Aspuro.
He bagged her. He bagged. You're telling me El Chapo bagged her? Ain't no fucking bro. In this life, have money. in this life, have money. Have it. Have it. Honestly, have money in this life. Because honestly, bro, if you had no money on my life, do you think there'll be... Nah, in this life, have
El
money.
Chapo had a
Amen.
prison escape all
Or
planned out.
it could be a thing. He was a nice guy, he's a great guy. It's not always about looks, you know. It could always be about like what's within. But who the fuck will go for a drug dealer? How does that make any sense? But let's be real, drug dealers do make money, and it's not always about the money. It could be about the heart.
And when the hour came for him to leave prison, El Chito electronically opened his cell door, concealing him inside this laundry cart filled with dirty clothes, and began wheeling him through different doors out into the corridor. But hey, if you remember, it was a max security prison and not a 100-meter corridor, so how was it so easy? Well, wheeling him through the many security checkpoints was obviously scary, even for a guy like El Chapo. And to put that into context, at one point El Chito was trying to convince a security guard to allow him through the gate, but in the process, the laundry cart started rolling back. You can imagine how Chapo was terrified that it would spill over and send him right back into the cell. But Mother Nature was on his side that day because the cart stopped and El Cheeto was able to wheel him out into the parking lot, where he was transported out of town by car. Evidently, El Chapo wasn't the pioneer of prison escapes.
That must have been the
and even though he
easiest
was already
prison
wanted
escape,
in the
bro.
US, there was a slim chance of getting him extradited. 6:40 a.m., February 22, 2014. Mexican authorities arrested Guzman at a beachfront hotel in Mazatlan following an operation by the Mexican Navy with joint intelligence from DEA and the U.S. Marshal Service. The operation leading to his capture began at 3:45 a.m. when 10 pickup trucks of the Mexican Navy carrying over 65 Marines made their way to the resort. Mexican and
Bro,
U.S.
65 Marines. You need that much people for one guy that just sold drugs and made 3 billion. Come on now, man. Like, give the guy something, man. 65 Marines. You don't need that many people for one guy that just sold drugs and made 3 billion, maybe more, and has a banging wife. Like, come on now, man. Like, you guys are the jealous. Let's be
Federal
real.
agents had
Like,
intel that the drug
honestly,
lord
bro,
had been at the location for at
you don't need
least
65
2
Marines
days,
for that
and
one
he had a
guy, bro.
condo on the 4th floor in room 401. When Mexican authorities arrived at the location, they quickly subdued Carlos Manuel Ramirez, one of Guzman's bodyguards, before quietly making their way to the 4th floor by elevators and stairs. Once they were at Guzman's front door, they broke in and stormed 2 rooms. In one was Guzman lying in bed with his wife. He was charged with drug trafficking, as he couldn't be charged with other crimes more than once. Subsequently, he was sent to Federal Social Rehabilitation Center No. 1, where Joaquin El Chapo Guzman orchestrated a second prison escape that completely ridiculed the Mexican government, mocking its prison structure.
This is the moment Joaquin El Chapo Guzman makes the Mexican government look ridiculous.
8:52 p.m., July 11th, 2015. El Chapo was seen in the shower area of his cell as captured by security cameras. Now, the shower area in this cell was the only blind spot, and after the guards didn't see him for 25 minutes on those cameras, personnel went looking for him. When they got to his cell, Guzman was gone. Keep in mind that this was one of the top max security prisons in Mexico, yet El Chapo was able to orchestrate a second escape using
Bro, went through the tunnels,
leading
bro.
from the showers to a residential
you guys are
construction
shit,
site
bro.
a mile away.
How do you go through the
tunnel
tunnels
was
like that?
33 feet deep underground, and Guzman descended down with a ladder. Down there, we had artificial
Bro,
light.
let's be real. If I had 3 billion to my name, I'm making every type of possible way to escape anywhere I am. 3 billion, and you think you can have that? Fuck off, bro. I'm making more money when I get out, bro. If I'm a drug, let's be real. Most guys will do the same thing if 3 billion to their name. Let's be real. I know you would do the same. I would. Everyone would. Let's be real. Even like little kids would. Come on now, man. Everyone will do the same, bro. My niece will probably do the same as well. Come on now, man.
Air ducts, and high-quality construction materials. In addition, they found a motorcycle down there, which authorities believed was used to transport materials and possibly Guzman himself. Now, even though El Chapo had a ton of help from the outside to facilitate this escape, it became evident that he had unparalleled access to resources and manpower, readily available to aid him in any situation. And after these 2 escapes, it looked like Mexico was highly incapable of holding the notorious drug lord, giving room for the U.S. to step in. ADX Florence. January 8th, 2016. The residence of El Chapo was raided by 17 Marines from the Mexican Army and federal police. This specific home had been under surveillance for over a month after locals reported sighting armed people moving in and out. Monitored communications indicated the home was being prepared for the arrival of grandma or aunt, which authorities suspected was code for a high-priority potential target, El Chapo. But before they could get through this reinforced steel bulletproof door, El Chapo had already escaped through a secret tunnel, emerging 1.5 kilometers away. Once he reached the other end of the tunnel, he came out and stole a civilian car.
It's kind of like a genie, bro. It
This
disappears
statewide
and
alert
disappears
was
every
issued
minute,
for
bro.
the stolen vehicle, and the federal police found and got it about 20 kilometers south of Los Mochis near the town of Juan Jose Rios. At the point of arrest, El Chapo made one last desperate attempt to bribe the officers with some cash, properties, maybe a job, but it was game over.
I would do the same.
He was
3 billion, I would do the same, bro.
Being a
Shit.
wanted man in Chicago, San Diego, New York City, New Hampshire, Miami, and Texas. In addition to having indictments in at least 7 different U.S. federal courts. A critical requirement for the extradition
they must be
U.S.
old telling them not
guaranteed
to
that
be
would
doing
sentence
enough this,
Guzman
man.
to death if he were found guilty of homicide charges. But for El Chapo, getting the death penalty certainly would have been a much better verdict. January 19, 2017. El Chapo was extradited to the U.S. and turned over to the DEA. From the second he stepped on American soil, you could see the terror in his eyes. He knew without a doubt that this may have been the end of the road.
American, you're done.
He was found guilty of all charges.
In America, you're
and
done.
sentenced on July 17,
you're never getting
2019 to life in prison plus 30 to be served at ADX Florence.
It means you're in your cell for 23 to 24 hours a day by yourself. You're let out for an hour in an underground concrete pit.
Oh shit.
Where you can't see into the distance.
The ADX Florence houses some of the most ruthless criminals of our time. These guys are straight up monsters with no interest in money or power. All they want to see are people suffer in the most sadistic of ways. Now, in case you didn't know, you might be asking why was El Chapo sent to this prison facility out of all the max prisons in the US? Well, the answer to that can be found in the backstory of why ADX was initially created and the kind of inhumane treatment prisoners as sinister as El Chapo are subjected to endure. October 22, 1983, Thomas Silverstein and Clayton Fountain, members of the Aryan Brotherhood, fatally stabbed correctional officers Merle Klutz and Robert Hoffman at a U.S. penitentiary in Marion. Now, Thomas was walking down the hall
why would he
with
do
his
that,
hands
bro?
cuffed in front of him. Then, in what seemed like a scene out of The Matrix, he shoved his hands into his friend's cell, who unlocked his cuffs with a stolen key and handed a knife over, allowing Thomas to just kill that guard.
What the fuck did
A few
have
hours
knives in
later,
prison like
a
that,
similar
bro?
scenario occurred, with Clayton using
How can you
the
even make a
same
knife in
technique.
prison?
Understand that back then the U.S. penitentiary in Marion used to be the go-to center for the worst criminals
Why are
in
you
the
throwing out
U.S.
gang signs?
However,
What the
when
fuck
these
do that?
incidents occurred,
Fuck.
it became clear that even among the most dangerous criminals, a few needed a more intense and secure facility. And that was how the idea of ADX came into play. ADX was all about housing people with no regard for human life.
This isn't a prison that the inmates run. We run this prison.
This thing's on a 37-acre complex in Florence, Colorado, part of a federal correctional complex, which has 3 correctional facilities, each with a different security rating. Now, the majority of the facility is above ground level, which is designed to house a max of 460 inmates. For some reason, it's never reached its full capacity. As of November 2023, ADX houses 332 inmates in 6 different units. Every inmate has been sent there for demonstrating signs of being too dangerous to be held in a normal prison. And just like El Chapo, these people are confined in a single-person cell for 23 hours a day. And when they're allowed to leave their cell, they're only allowed to be in a slightly bigger area for just an hour.
That's hell,
It could be
bro.
anywhere between 1 a.m.,
That's
4
suffering.
p.m., or any time
no.
chosen by the correctional officers.
They choose
During
the
their
time you
1 hour
leave.
free time, they're taken around in handcuffs, shackles, or both, depending on how dangerous the inmate is. For El
Everyone's
Chapo, he's
dying.
constantly in both because they can't risk losing sight of him even for a second. Now, inmates are free to
choose
move
the time you
around,
leave?
exercise, or even meditate in an underground pit looking like an empty pool. And yeah, the pool is larger than their cell, but it's way smaller than you think. How small, you ask? About 10 steps in a straight line or 30 in a circle. That should give you a clear picture of this
Wait,
so-called...
hold on. Where's their bed? Where's their bed? There's no way they're sleeping on the floor like this. Where's their bed? You're telling me they're just sleeping on the floor? In a pit? Oh, fuck.
outdoor area. However, not all inmates face these strict measures. The longer a person's there and the longer they demonstrate good behavior, the more outdoor time they get. However, if an inmate proves to be incorrigible, they may spend their entire sentence locked up in ADX. Nevertheless, when it comes to diet and feeding, things get worse. Food and packs are served to inmates and are properly checked to ensure that they can't be used to harm themselves or correctional officers, and also to make sure their cells are kept clean. Inmates brought in from other places are allowed to eat in a shared dining room, but inmates as dangerous as El Chapo get their meals delivered by correctional officers. Once El Chapo's done eating, that food tray's inspected to make sure he didn't break off a piece to use as a weapon. Now, his cell has a bed, a desk, and a stool,
Oh, it does,
all constructed purely out of concrete.
I was gonna say,
And right there beside the door is a
he's sleeping
toilet.
on the floor,
This
bro.
toilet is designed for one flush at a time, meaning there aren't any handles there. His cell is one of a few that have a shower within it. and the shower is on a scheduled timer. There's a little sink in there as well, without a potentially dangerous tap. Some cells have steel mirrors that have been bolted to the walls.
There's a timer for when you shower. Oh, bro, the 3 billion ain't that much, bro. You didn't have to do all of that. You didn't have to do all of that. Let's be real. Like 3 billion, that's not really a lot of money. Like, come on now, bro. They have the time when you have a shower. You don't even. What if you need to take a shit, like a peak shit? You only get one flush. Sometimes I shit a lot. I mean, I don't be shitting like that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, what if you need to take like 3 shits a day? Bro, you be stinking out. I prefer that, man. Hey,
and others
don't do
have
drugs,
televisions.
Man.
El
Don't do
Chapo's
drugs,
in
man.
particular has a nice
Honestly, this is the
13-inch
same thing,
TV.
bro.
However, the programs are mild. You can only really watch recreational, educational, and religious content. He's also given some books and magazines
That's
if
good,
he wishes
though.
to read,
Reformation.
but I highly doubt
Reformation.
there's any reading going on in there. Now, the next thing to consider is the wall of the cell. Unlike other places, the ADX has only a 4x4 foot window. The windows are designed to restrict inmates from knowing their particular location within the complex. So for an inmate like Chapo, it's nearly impossible for him to orchestrate some type of escape when he or people on the outside really don't have a clue about his exact location. Now, outside of this cell is a multitude of motion detectors, cameras, and 1,400 remote-controlled steel doors. The guards in the control center watch over inmates 24 hours a day. They also have what's known as a panic button, which is basically the single red button that immediately shuts down every door in the place. In addition to that, there's pressure pads and 12-foot razor-wired fences surrounding the perimeter, patrolled by heavily armed officers. And if you manage to sneak by all of that, there are 12 different gun towers ready down the road leading to ADX Florence. I mean, at this point,
Shit.
the thought of escaping should be terrifying. How many men would he have to pay off? Or how many security guards would he have to bypass to just
Bro's facing
exit
against
this
the army,
place?
bro. What
But
the
as
fuck?
hardcore as all that sounds, there are a few more things that make this place even more horrible.
We don't ask them to come here. With their misbehavior and management problems, they earn their way here.
ADX Florence has inmates on 6 different security levels. One of the levels is the General Population Unit, and under that one is a cell block, simply known as H. That's a unit where our dear old El Chapo's kept. They're watching him all the time, and according to his lawyers, he doesn't get any sleep. He gets harassed by these officers, and his family isn't allowed to visit. But as high-profile a criminal as El Chapo is, he's not the most dangerous person in here.
He's getting
There's a
fruit,
unit
bro.
known as
That's like your
Range
family not
13.
allowed to
That
visit, bro.
place is for those who need the toughest control, and for creatures who are classified as ruthless killing animals. It's crazy how El Chapo's not down there, like somebody else you might know, Ramzi Youssef. Pakistani-born
Who the fuck is
Ramzi
this guy, bro?
Youssef
You know,
was
says somebody
convicted
might
in
know. Who's this guy, bro?
1994 of terrorism conspiracy
Oh,
and other
okay,
charges
shit, yeah,
in
okay,
connection
that
for the
makes sense.
93 World Trade Center bombing, killing 6 people and injuring more than 1,000.
Oh.
In 96, Youssef
Oh,
was
him.
also
Oh,
convicted of planning Project Bajinka, a foiled plot conceived by senior al-Qaeda member Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to bomb 12 planes in 48 hours. Now, El Chapo has done a lot of things.
12
Some
planes
might
in
argue
48
that
hours. He
Ramsey's
needs
crimes
God.
truly
He
earned
needs
him a spot
something,
in
bro.
March 13. Another inmate of this hell is Thomas Silverstein, one of the 2 men behind the Federal Bureau of Prisons idea to build the ADX Florence. At this point, one thing's certain. There's absolutely no way El Chapo can come up with a plan to escape the ADX. However,
There's no
there
way,
is
he
a
would die.
small little loophole he could exploit to get back his freedom. The
Don't tell
loophole.
me escapes again, bro.
January 2022. El Chapo's conviction was upheld by a Second Circuit court in the U.S. after attorneys tried hinging a story of juror misconduct reported 8 days after his 2019 conviction. Now, there's a story alleging that the jurors were exposed to information that wasn't admitted as evidence in the trial, including claims by a cooperating witness that El Chapo drugged and raped girls. This gave El Chapo's defense team an edge to taint the jury.
Why?
and
You have a
claim that
girl.
his conviction
What's
should have
wrong with
ended in
this guy?
mistrial or the
You bastard. You just want everything, bro. What's wrong with my man, bro? You're raping girls and you have a girl. This guy is tapped, bro. You're 3 billion to your name. You have a girl, even though you got caught, which you're stupid. Bro, why are you touching girls? Why are you touching other girls when you have a whole girl to yourself, bro? You need God, bro. You need something in your life somebody needs to just beat you up. Maybe that's it. Somebody just needs to beat your ass.
verdict
So you can know,
overturned.
so you can
The
understand.
court wasn't
Even
buying this
raping girls, like, what's
fabricated
wrong with you,
story
bro?
and upheld his conviction. However, in a desperate attempt to get El Chapo
Fucking
out of
wrong
this
with people
place,
like
they
that,
came
bro?
up with a new strategy, which is for El
What the
Chapo
fuck?
to be on his best behavior. 2 units within the ADX allow inmates to walk freely, interacting with others in their range. This unit, however, is only open to inmates who have demonstrated good behavior over a certain period of time. And if they continue displaying this good behavior, then there's a really high chance they can get transferred out of ADX to a lesser prison in the US. So, if El Chapo somehow manages to make it out into a lesser prison, then he might be able to pull off one of his classical prison escapes.
Don't free him, then.
Another way to get out of
Don't
ADX
free him.
is by exploiting the law and criticisms about mental health issues. Despite the strict measures put in place so far to keep anyone from getting out of ADX, many murders have occurred within this place due to mental breakdowns. April 21st, 2005. 2 inmates, Sylvester Rivera and Richard Santiago, were caught on tape brutally beating and stomping to death a high-profile Mexican mafioso, Manuel Torres, within the prison facility. Now just imagine criminals in ADX still committing murder. The next logical step
Damn,
was
they're
for
still
them to
killing
be
people in
sentenced to
prison.
death
What
and
the
placed
fuck?
on death row, but for some unknown reason, they
Instead of
remained
you guys to be
incarcerated at ADX. Apart from this incident, there have been a total of 8 suicides inside this place, and that rests on the fact that the conditions at ADX Florence are too harsh on its inmates. I mean, they're criminals, but they're still humans, right? And besides, there are a few inmates who haven't committed crimes as brutal as El Chapo or Ramsey Youssef. In 2012, 11 inmates filed a federal class action suit against the Federal Bureau of Prisons. The suit alleged chronic abuse and failure to properly diagnose prisoners who are suffering from chronic mental illness. Also in 2020, a British magistrate refused to extradite Julian Assange, the founder of the nonprofit organization WikiLeaks, to the United States. And that was because the magistrate felt he would be subjected to solitary confinement and special administrative measures at ADX Florence. Luckily for Assange, the US and the High Court of Justice for England agreed to extradite him on the premise that he wouldn't be subjected to any special administrative measures or imprisoned at ADX. And yes, convincing a competent judge that El Chapo should be transferred to a lesser prison on grounds of good behavior is a long shot, but it's more or less like his only hope at this point. This can be coupled with the fact that his incarceration barely changed anything back in Mexico. The Sinaloa cartel remains one of the most powerful and prolific drug trafficking organizations. It still controls a worldwide web of contacts moving Colombian
They
cocaine
even still
and Mexican
going, bro.
cooks to the US, also
So they all
controlling
know this,
seaports
and
to
they're
get drugs
still-
and
they're still
precursor
distributing
chemicals shipped
drugs.
in from around the globe, while managing the multi-million-dollar tunnels built by El Chapo to smuggle tons of marijuana and cocaine. And that doesn't even emphasize the armies of hitmen and enforcers who are directly involved in extortion, kidnapping, and money laundering for the cartel.
Now I know
Perhaps most
why
importantly, Sinaloa
there was so many
continues to
people on
control
him.
what's referred to as the last
did
mile
everything.
in the U.S., using the wholesale distribution network to get the drugs into hands of local gangs and street dealers. After El Chapo's arrest, the cartel split into factions, with one led by El Chapo's longtime partner, El Mayo, and the other headed by his adult sons, known as Los Chapitos. Now, these
Bro got his kids involved. Bro got his kids involved to be involved in drugs. This guy's insane.
factions are using their network in high places and
Guys
vast
insane, bro.
access to
Bro got your
resources to
kids
hype a
to
new
get
public
involved
enemy,
into the
Nemesio
drug
Segura
deals.
Cervantes, better known as
Hey.
El Mencho. El Mencho's Jalisco New Generation cartel is on the rise and has only existed for about a decade, but it rose to power much more quickly than its rival, Sinaloa. Their influence stretches across 6 continents and 28 of Mexico's 32 states. Major U.S. cities like L.A., Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, and New York are all affected by the CJ&G's meth, while El Mencho's henchmen commit gruesome acts of violence as they battle rivals in Mexico. They're painting Guzman to be a hero and El Mencho the villain. Yeah, they're both drug dealers, but El Chapo is seen as a charming rogue, a self-made man who rose from abject poverty to ranking on the Forbes billionaires list. To some in Sinaloa, he
Was on
remains
the
a
Forbes.
modern-day Robin Hood, credited with building churches,
Bro was on the
paving
Forbes. What
roads,
Forbes? What you doing?
pumping cash
You're
into
just
the
you're just
local
making drug
economy,
dealers
all
rich. Now,
sticking
why
it
you?
to
Why
the
you?
man. He's
What's
the
going on?
people's outlaw, A real-life Tony Montana. A bad guy, sure, but at least he had the guts to be what he wanted to be. Diverting everyone's attention to El Mencho and the CJ&G could leave a getaway for El Chapo's defense team to work a little magic. Right now, El Chapo mostly spends his time watching cable TV, writing letters to his mom, sisters, and twin daughters.
That's
the few family members he is allowed to contact. Mexico's president, Obrador, who has a history of siding with El Chapo's organization, said that he would consider El Chapo's request to return from the U.S. to complete his sentence on humanitarian grounds, claiming the psychological torment he's going through over there is inhumane. While it is unclear if Mexico has the power to do such, the U.S. definitely isn't sending El Chapo home to Mexico for a family reunion. El Chapo's gone for good, but we don't think his story is done being written.
And then what happens is you become an animal or you become your own worst enemy.
Bro, he's gonna end up escaping. I'm telling you, he's gonna like wine and dine one of the guards, and he's gonna end up escaping again. And it's gonna be over the news, and it's gonna go crazy. I'm telling you, I'm predicting this, bro. He's gonna escape again. Okay, he already escaped 2 prisons. You think he's gonna escape again? Come on, man.